Now, here's a question. Should we block internet pornography? The government is considering the option of forcing internet service providers to block all access unless a user expressly asks for it. So everyone will be opted out. You wouldn't be able to see pornography on the internet unless you opted in and said, yes, please, I would like to see it. Miranda Soot is co-chair of Safer Media, which campaigns for safer media for children.
The Witherspoon report from the States earlier this year, when a whole host of academics came together and researchers said that pornography now is qualitatively and quantitatively different from any that's gone before in any previous society because of the reality and the live streaming on the internet and because of the accessibility in the home, and there's no embarrassment whatsoever. And obviously, with the convergence of the media, that's getting more and more the case because we've got computers, we've got mobile phones, smartphones accessing the internet. We've got possibly stuff coming through onto TVs in the quite near future. And so it's really the fact that there's always been an issue of harm to some degree with pornography, which has been widely acknowledged. But now the accessibility and the quality, it's also much more violent than it used to be, mainstream pornography. We definitely feel that what the government is suggesting this time, which is to take some of the burden off parents, because until this point, the government have been relying basically on parents and teachers. Parents have been saying, actually, with the best will in the world, this is an extremely difficult problem to deal with. And even if I actually make sure my own child's not actually able to access this material, then very often the kids they're mixing with have. And if the sort of mental health damage that we're talking about, experts are talking about, is occurring, then it's actually going to be tainting a whole generation, even if you manage with your own children. But anyway, to go back to actually get it at source, so it's not coming down into your computer to such an extent.
Well, we spoke about this with Trefor Davies from the internet service provider Tomiko, which is based in Newark. It's a business internet service provider. But we asked him about pornography and would it work to put a block on it?
Well, as a father of four, it's very difficult to not agree with the general principle. I guess the real problem comes when you have to look at the practicalities of doing it. If you look at the types of system they use in schools, then there's two different sorts. There's a sort where you have a list of sites that you don't want kids to access, and you can. There are companies that employ maybe 80 or 90 staff to constantly add new websites to this list. And there's an American company that springs to mind that they've got 90 staff, and those 90 staff add between 400 and 600 new sites a day. That's fine, okay. Expensive way of doing it, but that's stops kids getting to those sites. The more economic and cost-effective way to do it, which is there's a company in the UK called Blocks that does this, and they don't employ the 90 staff. They use a computer to analyse what's on that site and make its own mind up as to whether you should be able to get at that site or not. And unfortunately, when you leave it to computers, computers get things wrong and you start blocking sites that are actually nothing to do with what you might want to block. And you will find very quickly that all of a sudden there's a lot of stuff out there on the internet that you want to see that you can't see. And if you do a search on Google for, if you want to do this, for free porn, you will come up with millions and millions of sites. So
what are you saying? Are you saying it's impossible to stop it then?
It's impossible to stop it. And even if you did manage to say, right, I've got a list of every single website in the world that's a porn site, then there are easy ways around it. There are lots of ways which kids will find very quickly. These things spread like wildfire.
Well, that's the danger, isn't it, with anything like this? If you try and do it, there's somebody one step behind you, maybe one step in front of you, looking at the alternative way, and trying to get round anything that gets in the way.
You're getting into a constant, expensive game of attrition where it's a never-ending battle that you can't win. And and unfortunately, it sounds great. Like I said, I like the idea of being able to prevent my kids from having access to these unsavoury sites, but the practicalities of it, it's just, unfortunately, politicians like the popular sounding sound bites, but they don't really understand the issues and the technicalities behind it all.
But wouldn't it even be better than the completely open situation that we have now if you did have to opt in and at least there were several hundred sites that were blocked? Wouldn't that be better for all our children? Wouldn't that be better to have sites blocked rather than you trying to do it at home at a sort of general central source?
So the way to do it is, lots of ISPs, or certainly the big consumer ones, provide parental control systems, right, where you can say, these are the types of websites that I don't want my kids to access. And quite often, they are based on your own home router, right? So you can, a parent can go on the router and say, these are the sort of sites. And then they basically take ownership of the fact that they might find lots of sites are not accessible as a result of it, rather than having to apply that whole policy to absolutely everyone. And of course, remember, there are some serious human rights and privacy issues surrounding the fact that what you're doing is you're asking, an individual sat in the privacy of his home network to say, yes, I want to access this porn site.
Well, that's another big thing, isn't it? How many people are going to put their hands up and say, yes, I do want to access porn, please?
Well, I guess the fact that there are these millions and millions of sites out there suggests that they are very popular with a lot of people.
But if you've actually got to put a tick in a box somewhere along the line, even though effectively you are putting a tick in the box every time you visit one of these sites, if you actually have to put on a form somewhere, yes, and I'd like my internet with porn.
Yeah, okay, so...
how many people are going to do that?
I'm just doing a quick Google search here. There are for free porn, okay? It comes up with 165 million sites, okay? Now I'm going to do a Google search for free proxy. A proxy is a server that allows you to get around a lot of these blocks, okay? The free proxy comes up with 10,200,000 results. There are so many ways out there for people to get around all these blocking systems. They just don't work.
So it's impossible to do. Do you have blocking systems on your own system at home because you're concerned about what your children might find on the internet? 81333, text number at BBC Lincolnshire 94.9 FM.